All right, this is going to be the last unit that we're going to review, and then after that we're going to start working on various different AP free response questions. All right, so we're going to start with kind of where we started the year, and that is with the general ideas of geography. And I kind of want to put this at the end because these are things you can kind of throw in with the additional information that we've been talking about over the last couple of units. So let's start with basically what's geography, right? You have a lot of information now that you can add in to this question. And if somebody asks you a question about population or agriculture or migration, you can fill in with some of the terms that we're going to talk about. Right? But geography is basically the description of the Earth's surface, the people who live there, and the process that shape it. Right? Not just the culture and the language, but the physical landscapes of the environment as well. Right? So not only the rocks and the rivers, but the buildings that are built there and the people who live there and what they do as well. Right? If we look at, early on we talked about some different types of theories of how people develop. Right? How do they develop this culture? How do they develop their human geography? And one of the early theories was environmental determinism. And environmental determinism, right, says that cultures are a direct result of where they exist. Right? This has a huge impact on colonialism because Europeans thought, since we live in a middle latitude area with beautiful, climate, and we can grow all this agriculture, somehow we are better than and can be more than anybody who lives in a bad environment. People who lived in cold environments had this going wrong with them. People who lived in hot environments were lazy, and therefore it was incumbent upon Europeans to do something to dominate these other cultures because they lived in a place where they couldn't change what they were going to be, right? People believed that Europeans and those who lived in the temperate climates, those middle latitudes, were more motivated. They were more intelligent and culturally advanced. As you can see, where there would be a lot of criticism of that particular theory, because of the fact that that's not true, right? Humans have been overcoming their environment for millions of years or thousands of years, however long humans have been on this planet, right? We have been able to manipulate the environment to be what we want. It may have an effect, but it certainly does not determine what you're going to be, and it certainly cannot be used as an excuse to dominate from one culture to dominate the other. The one that's more favored now is environmental possibilism, right? It suggests that humans are not a product necessarily of their environment, but that they possess skills necessary to modify that environment, to adapt it to fit what they need, right? So we can determine our outcomes. So people who live in warmer climates, they used to think were lazy, right? Were more relaxed about attitude, about progress. They just didn't care, right? We know that's not true because places that are hot, cold, and moderate have all sought to overcome their particular environment. All right. Okay. You need to talk about maps because you're going to get one on your test, right? You're going to get a map. Probably, you're going to have 3 different stimuli, 2 on the first question, 1 on the second. Probably one of those will be a map, right? So you need to read the map and understand what this map is showing you so that you can answer the question appropriately. Right? Let's start with scale. Right? Scale is the relationship of the size of the map to the amount of the area it's representing on the planet. Right? In this case, we're looking at the United States. Right? A small scale map shows more area with less detail. Larger scale maps show a smaller area but in greater detail. Right? So small scale maps give us some good general information, but not as much as a larger scale. Right? Where is this map coming from? Right? It comes from NOAA, which is a federal agency that deals with weather. Right? It's a map that talks about average temperatures in Fahrenheit through this period of time of 2001. The map is divided up into regions. Each region is colored, and it is color coded over here on the key. Each region has a common characteristic. That's what a region is, something that has a common characteristic. In the area where we are in Texas, right, it's this light green area, so our average temperature during this period of time was between 50 and 60 degrees, like all of the other area that's in this same color. All right, so you need to make sure that you can talk about the map, but you got to read the map first in order to be able to speak with it with authority. Right? You talk about maps, you have to talk about distortion. Right? You are taking a round globe, a round object, the planet Earth, and trying to put it on a flat, two-dimensional map. And you're always going to have some kind of distortion on the map. Sometimes that distortion is not a big deal. Sometimes it is a big deal. Remember we looked at the Mercator map, which has great distortion at the north and south poles because it just takes that flat Earth and then flattens it out, right? And it's good for some things and not good for other things. But if you remember correctly, it made Greenland look bigger than Africa. And for a while, people would believe that, right? They would use it to play into those assumptions that they would make about Africa. Right, going back to environmental determinism, that Africans are lazy because it's too warm there, and their country's smaller than Greenland. So maps can be misused. Sometimes you can use color inappropriately if you want to emphasize a place as being better or draw more attention to it. You can use brighter colors. Right? If you are in the Cold War, the United States would look pretty in blue, and the communist Soviet Union would be red. Right? A strong, bold, harsh color in the United States would be peaceful and serene. So you can use maps for that purpose as well. All right, let's look at the 5 themes of geography. We've looked at this a long time ago, but it is something that we come across periodically. All right, the 5 themes of geography, of course, are place, region, location, human environmental interaction, and movement. All right, and all of them have a place. We know that. Let's start with place. All right. If we're looking at the surface of the Earth, we are going to give it certain attributes to describe it. Right, we're going to describe the place. It's hot, it's cold, it's rugged with mountains, it's flat like plains, right? When we say a place has a modern city, a fast-growing population, right? We are looking at things that describe that place to give it meaning, to give us some understanding of it. Descriptions of place are also oftentimes have a cultural aspect to it. So this place could be a place of worship, a place of entertainment, right? Something that would give us some indication about what that place looks like. All right, region is going back to that map before, right? It's an area that has some kind of characteristic to it that links all the places within that region. Formal regions is what we saw in the map before, right? In that area, you have one characteristic of a place, right? So that is a formal region. If I say every place in Europe where people predominantly speak French, that could be a formal region, right? Anything and everything inside that has a similar characteristic. We can have functional regions around some kind of node like an airport or a mall, right? An area that has a center that everything works and coordinates with that node. We can look at perceptual regions, right? We know that people are going to have a different idea of what the South is, right? So that is a perceptional region. What do I think it might be? Location, we have relative location, which is where you are in reference to other places on the Earth. Absolute location, which is your longitude and latitude. Right, again, let's go back to Chicago, has an absolute location, its longitude and latitude, but its relative location, it is on the coast of Lake Michigan, right? It is in the north part of the Midwest, however you want to describe it. That ties back in, of course, to site and situation, which we talked about earlier. Site being its absolute location plus the things that make it unique, right? Make it desirable. Situation, of course, is its relative location and how it interacts with the rest of the world, right? Let's look also at movement, right? Movement or spatial interaction. How do we move between places? So we can talk about migration. We can talk about interconnections and spatial connections, right? How does New York and Los Angeles interact with each other? What's the movement between them? We can also then, the last one being human environment interaction, and that is how do we interact with our environment, right? How does the environment shape who we are, and how do we shape the environment for our particular benefit as well, right? Let's move on. Right, diffusion is another aspect that we talked about in general, but we've used it in almost every chapter, right? Our ideas of state, agriculture, language, fashion, all have something to do with diffusion, right? And we've talked about different types of diffusion, starting with contagious, right? Where we are up here at the top, right? This is the hearth where the idea starts, and then everybody around it, right? Everybody around that touches this hearth or comes in contact with someone from the hearth is going to get that idea, is going to get that innovation, right? This is where it diffuses early, the closer to the hearth, and as you move further away, right, later diffusion. And then this kind of circular area kind of defines as far as it will diffuse. It may not diffuse outside of this particular area for a number of reasons. One is our concept of distance decay, right? As something is far away, it is less likely to either accept the innovation or less likely for that innovation to reach that particular area. It may be blocked by some, cultural difference that says, no, I don't want that particular innovation. So there's reasons why it will only go so far and then probably die. Understand that in the days when an innovation would start and everything was done by word of mouth, by travel, it may have been that this was a smaller area. But now with social media, Twitter, phones, TV, whatever, it's going to go a lot farther and can go as far as it needs to. It may change along the way. It may hit some kind of cultural block that says no, but it's going to diffuse a lot further. Another type of diffusion, hierarchical, right? I'm not diffusing to everybody that comes in contact with it. I may diffuse to just a few people. It can be friends. It can be leaders. It can be people who have great influence in the hopes that they will then pass that along to everyone else. So the socially elite. We looked at houses of fashion. We looked at Islam spreading literally to the rulers of an area, and then the rulers spreading it down to the rest of everyone else. Right? Expansion diffusion is this. It contains contagious, hierarchical, and all the others, right? We expand out. Stimulus diffusion, we go into an area where they are not necessarily accepting of what we want, but we figure it out, right? Taking a Big Mac and making it a veggie burger or a chicken burger in order to go into an area where they do not necessarily accept it. The last kind, relocation, where you have like a missionary moving from one place and relocating to another. All of these work together. They're not just one or the other. So I may relocate and then engage in contagious. All right, so we're going to stop there and get on to the next one.